Oh. Okay. So the 14th Amendment is like a giant supercharged force field protecting all of your human rights. It comes right after the 13th Amendment, which, as you all know, abolished slavery, ending the most shameful chapter in our nation's history. Lincoln knew, though, that just ending slavery would not be enough, so he got his friend John Bingham to help him write the 14th and 15th Amendments, the Reconstruction Amendments. These amendments made the newly freed slaves citizens, guaranteed them equal protection under the law, and protected their right to vote. This amendment was a huge force in the civil rights movement. It facilitated the desegregation of schools, buses, and hospitals, although that would take almost 100 years. And let's be clear, somebody had to activate the force field. It took the heroic work of civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Dorothy Height, Rosa Parks, Bayard Rustin, to rouse the great powers of Amendment 14. I just want to emphasize that this amendment guaranteed equal rights only to men. Black women were not given these rights. No women were given these rights. The question of Native American rights never even came up. Even Lincoln was trapped in a penumbra on that one. This is the first time the word male is explicitly used in the Constitution. So whereas before there was a little room for interpretation about whether women could vote, now it was explicit. We could not vote. Lincoln asked us to wait just a tiny bit longer to get the vote. Just like 54 years longer. My dad says that's why what we call the penalty box of democracy. Sometimes you just have to wait for things. Sometimes it's better to fix one bad thing than to try to fix two bad things and fail. I took George II's friend with me on a business trip to Los Angeles recently. He loves the West Coast. He was in my bag, wrapped up in a wool stocking cap to protect him. Then it got cold on the plane, so I took him out, put on the stocking cap, and put him in an airplane blanket so I wouldn't be like a middle-aged lady with a stuffed monkey on her lap. Then, suddenly, I was at baggage claim and I realized I had left George II's friend on the plane. I don't even know how to describe my reaction. I was wailing, sobbing. I was doing the Greek tragedy of crying. I ran up to the help desk and the woman took one look at me and was like, "Are you okay?" And I said, wailing, no, I left something very valuable on the plane. And she was like, "What is it?" And I said, "My child's favorite toy." It gets worse. And my child is very sick. I know. But she really leapt into action. She called up to that gate, "Get that monkey off the plane!" And then she swiped through security and I started running faster than I've ever run in my entire life. I ran past like 14 Starbucks. And when I got to the gate, I could see George II's friend just sitting happily on this guy's counter. So I ran up, tears still coming down my face. But this guy paid no attention to me. So I was just like, fuck it. And I grabbed George II's friend and collapsed onto the airport floor. And I kept just wailing. And I have no idea what I was crying about. I don't even know if I was crying for my Grandma B, or because of chemical depression, or because he's such a cute little monkey, or because of centuries and centuries of fucking inherited trauma, or maybe it's just the appropriate response to have right now. My mom says, when you are paralyzed by rage and despair, you have to imagine a woman running along a beach with a dog. There's more. If you watch the dog, it keeps running back and forth and back and forth. So it seems like progress is constantly being undone. But if you watch the woman, you can see that she is moving steadily forward and forward and forward, I hope. I told my mom about my abortion recently because, well, I was going to tell you all. She was so blasé about it. I said, why'd you freak out back then? She said, I can be calm about it now that I know your life turned out okay. She wanted to know if I was angry at her. I was like, no, because my life turned out okay. This is the actual book I used to prepare for the contest. Your Rugged Constitution. It's fantastic. There are little cartoons that explain all the amendments to you. It's endorsed by Herbert Hoover. I noticed the other day that this copy was published in 1954, which means that it didn't have all the amendments, but that never stopped me from winning. My fiercest competitor was this genius girl named Becky Lee Dobler from Lawrence, Kansas, who gave a speech every year about how the Constitution was a patchwork quilt. Ugh. The thing she was so good at, though, is that, well, in order to win this thing, you had to draw a personal connection between your own life and the document. And Becky was amazing at this. She would tell these incredible stories about her pioneer grandmother who, I don't know, 8 people along the trail. This part was harder for me when I was 15. I was pretty emotionally guarded. And I didn't want to talk about my grandmother. We performed these speeches to audiences of older, mostly white men. And in my memory, they were all smoking cigars. I would love it if you would be the men for me. You are all men now. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start. I'm going to be 15, but I'm not going to do anything special to make myself 15. So here I am. I'm 15. When I think about how brave my mom and my aunt were as teenagers, well, it gives me such respect for them. But it also makes me think that progress doesn't only move one way. I have learned so much from younger people. You all seem braver than I remember being when I was your age. You're more compassionate. You certainly have a more sophisticated understanding of gender. Sometimes I feel like you're swinging a light backwards into the darkness so I can follow you into the future. I've struggled my whole life to forgive my grandmother for not protecting my mom. I don't know if I can forgive her. But it's also confusing because I loved her so much. We all loved her. My mom loved her. My aunts and uncles loved her. And the Grandma Bee who didn't protect her kids is not the Grandma Bee I knew. The grandma I knew loved us all like crazy. She gave her whole life to her kids, her grandkids, her great-grandkids. She would have thrown her body in front of a truck for me. So I don't know how to make sense of my 2 grandmothers. Except while I've been making this, I've realized how many of us are forced to be 2 people in this culture.